Empathy is something that nearly every human is born with. We naturally feel for our fellow people, and their pain is often our pain. This has, throughout history, you can imagine, helped us survive as a species and had persistently made sure that we don't just start killing off each other willy-nilly. It is a core of what makes us human and what makes us tick. So, of course, we've found ways to exploit it. From basic manipulation your parents do when you're young because, well, they're too bored to explain to you why flipping skirts is wrong because you wouldn't get it, to masterminds behind this advertisement. Oh my god, isn't it just so sad? I mean, the girl and the dad and the boats, it's like, oh my god! We encounter these attempts at exploitations nearly every day. However, today I'm not here to talk about them, but focus on a much more specific and much cheaper version. Pity films. Pity films / sad films / depressing films, whatever you wish to call them, aren't exactly a new thing. It didn't take a genius to realize that introducing sad elements into the story caused audiences to empathize and relate more to the ongoing action, hence making it more likely to sell better. As the entire movie industry, pity films have evolved to mimic the contemporary issues. For instance, post 9/11, majority of war movies dealt with either war efforts or soldiers suffering from PTSD coming back home, as a lot of families back then dealt with the same issues. Still, as they say that love prevails, the greatest pity movie of all time, Titanic, took the #1 spot for long years to come in terms of just how many tears were shed. Or wallets emptied. Does the fact that Titanic is a pity movie make it somehow bad? No, it certainly doesn't. But imagine if Jack and Rosalina were terrible people who just yelled at others before the whole crash fiasco. Would you still have felt the same emotions as you did when Jack died without any reason, because it was clear as day he could have fit on the plank as well? No, I suppose you wouldn't. However, there is a running theme with pity movies. They generally rely on this gimmick of inducing emotional reaction from the viewers to work. While there are, obviously, exceptions which use the pity part as an enhancement on already great movie, for instance, Shawshank Redemption, this isn't the case with majority of them. So, with that in mind, let's finally conclude this overly drawn intro and dive right into the topic of today's discussion, the art of empathy. Pity movie or not, you always want your audiences to relate to your characters, at least on some level. Whether it's what the character in the movie likes or is like, or the random condition he's suffering from, a great reason why movie industry is so successful is because movies draw audiences into this majestic world and make them feel a part of it. The problem though arrives at the crossroad of why are you so invested in a movie, or why do you feel these sad emotions? Contrast, for example, the before-mentioned Titanic and say The Fault in Our Ass. Both are romantic tragedies, at their core at least, but why is it almost universally accepted, if we exclude teens I suppose, that the Titanic is a better movie? Is it the acting, cinematography and other technical stuff? Well, yeah, sure in part, but not to the point it all breaks apart. No, the greatest division lies in the pity factor, or rather the reason for it. If you look at the core perils of Titanic and The Fault in Our Minds, they become eerily similar, really. Jack and Augusto Masters are basically same characters, and both girls are drawn in by this playful, outgoing, woo personality traits that they defined as. The part of the pity comes from the fact that the characters are fun and that the audiences fall in love with them the same way the girls do in the movie. You have developing romance where the guy's personality quote-unquote opens up the girl's worldview in a way, and you have inevitable tragedy that fucks it all up. So where does the division lie? Well, first and foremost, let's look at The Fault in Our Minds. Cancer is a gimmick in the movie. That's literally the problem. Cancer is used solely as a drawing factor to induce sympathy and empathy in the audience. It could have been just as easily replaced by Ebola or something and nothing would have changed. The crux of the matter is that the tragedy is the end goal and the means to get there are irrelevant. We pity those two because they're young and because cancer is trendy. Wait, did I really just say that? In reality, it's a pretty cheap device which leads to another cheap device: depression. Now, we know that the depression is all the craze with millennials nowadays, but the movie gives no fucks to even attempt to take these two things and properly roll with them, and instead just injects them and basically says, "Here, feel sad, you fucks." Now, let's move away from our beloved hazelnuts and Augustralians, and let's take a look at Jack and Jill. Good God, I love that movie. Where does the pity part come in? Well, the boat is sinking, there is no cheap personal gimmick to induce the pity, he doesn't try to dwell on the depths of soul and stars and existential crisis, and simply relies on the tragic story itself to induce the pity. Now, don't get me wrong, there is a whole heap of emotional manipulation going on with Titanic as well, but the main crux is done with much more care and subtlety than in The Fault in Our Red Dwarfs. Now, I'm going to hop on every teen's favorite author a little bit, John Green. Look man, I like you, okay? I watched all your courses on history and it has taught me far more than my college professors. But dude, seriously, you gotta stop writing the same shit over and over again. I know it sells, but come on. Every main girl in your book is straight out terrible philosopher, and it doesn't help that none of them are older than 18, which is a nice gateway into the modern art of empathy. Pandering. I won't attack romantic comedies as I feel they're too easy of a target, so I'll just take it up a notch and discuss the pandering movies for teenagers a little bit. Now, there's a whole heap of them, and to show some love for John Green, I'll leave him alone for now and move on. Let's take a look at The Bridge to Terabithia. I hope that's how you pronounce it. Is it a good movie? Kind of. I mean, the death aftermath is done pretty well to give the movie credit, and the coping is presented in a pretty decent way. But that's post-tragedy thing. We were already at the maximum pity levels, so let's go back to when pity levels weren't that high.
But what if you don't have a TV?
Take a look at this girl. Take a good look at her. Why? Because she's not real. She doesn't exist in the real world. Her family doesn't exist in the real world. Hence, the pity part. Writers have done absolutely everything to make you fall in love with this girl, from her innocent whatever looks, to adventurous, whimsical personality, to spitting bullshit as it comes, all for the simple emotional backlash she'll suffer when she dies. Within first 5 minutes of her introduction, if you know anything about pity movies, you'll be seeing a major death flag waving above her head, and it won't come as a surprise when she dies. She's more of a tool to induce sadness rather than the character in and of itself. Therein the problem lies. You'll still feel some levels of sadness, I suppose, but not because you fell in love with a character, but the projection writers wanted you to fall in love with. The blatant emotional manipulation unveils all the way until her death and is then hammered with a coping part. So you leave the movie theater or your bedroom and you feel sad. And then a few days later, you remember the movie and you still feel sad. However, after some passage of time, you realize that you don't know why you're feeling sad. I've already discussed The Bridge to the Terrible Sadness before, so I won't harp on it any longer. With that said, I'm sorry, but I have to go back to our most beloved Green. Green Arrow, baby! Good God, no. That show fell off almost as hard as The Walking Dead. No, I won't be going back to John Green, because really, The Fault in Our Stars is the only pity party from him, at least the one that I read, and Paper Towns and Looking for Alaska, not as adventurous as it sounds, are more straight-out pandering movies. Instead, I'll move away a bit from the teeny stuff and go a bit more to the adult side. Okay, not that kind of adult side. Jeez man, get a room. Let's take a look at Will Smith. Great, charismatic actor that has been a part of some mind-blowing movies like Hancock and Afterbirth. Okay. Will Smith is a great actor, there's no doubt about it, but he has tendencies for pity party galore when it comes to his movies. Just take a look at Afterbirth. I pity every person who saw it. I mean, you got In Pursuit of Happiness, fuck you. Then you have I Am Legend. But while there are pity films, they're still pretty decent. In Pursuit of Happiness, we see a struggling father trying to make ends meet while also trying to raise a kid. In I Am Legend, he has to shoot his dog. But there's one that stands above the crowds, £7. Hey, that rhymes, ha ha ha. Good God, was that pitiful. £7 is a story about a man distraught with sorrows, stalking unknowing people and planning to give himself to them. Sounds like a porno a little bit, but I promise you it's not. The movie goes so far into the feel sad category, I honestly can't even remember the fucking plot and just the feel sad moments. You find yourself having to like it because, well, it's Will Smith giving organs to the poor people and he kills himself. But then you come to the conclusion that that's the only thing about the movie you remember. Moving away from the movies, let's look at the latest craze of the pity poopy party. 13 reasons why this show sucks. Number 1, it's pandering at its groundbreaking lowest. Pity party TV shows are even worse than movies. With movies it's at least short, like an hour and a half. You pretend to cry alongside other emotionally unstable people and after that you're done. But with TV shows it gets much worse. I've seen 3 episodes of 13 Reasons Why I Never Finished this show. Number 1, it's pandering at its groundbreaking lowest. And throughout all 3 episodes, I've never seen a character. No, I'm not blind, I have semi-functioning eyes. What I mean is that all the quote-unquote characters in the show are taken from self-indulgent 30-year-old girl diary. Oh, 13 Reasons. I get it now. I'm not saying that teenage suicide isn't a problem, but making a pandering TV show that romanticizes depression and suicide and weak character certainly won't sold Jack Diddley. You may notice I'm mostly skimming over these shows and movies, and there's a good reason for it. They all set out to do the exact same thing, make you feel sad. Now again, the aim of any form of entertainment is to induce emotion from the audience. For horror movies it's fear, thrillers it's suspense, comedy it's joy and happiness. But let me draw you some parallels to illustrate what I mean a bit better. Jump scares in horror movies. They're cheap, they're boring, they work on the basics of human instinct. Do you see what I'm going with this? Fart and burp jokes in comedies. They're cheap, they're boring, they work on... Wait, they don't work. Do you see where I'm going with this? Lady in the Water in thriller movies. It's cheap, it's boring, it doesn't work. Do you see where I'm going with this? Every genre has a generic, boring, cheap trope it uses to induce emotional reaction from the audience. And the hallmark of bad entertainment is that it's defined by it. The Fault in Our Stars is basically that cancer movie where kids die. Titanic is basically that sink and burn movie where a boy dies without a reason. 13 Reasons is basically that suicide movie where a bitch dies because, well, others were bitchier. The point I'm trying to make here, I guess, is that it's time we learn to recognize these pity movies and see them for what they are. Cheap ways for some quick bucks. I've already made a video on how to basically write these stories, you can check it out. It's terribly inaccurate and mostly sarcastic, but gotta shamelessly promote myself somehow on my own channel. In the end, pity movies are somehow part of the culture, sort of like propaganda movies. There'll always be a market for them because there'll always be gullible people willing to swallow whatever the movie is selling. And it's fine if you enjoy these flicks and consider those who don't heartless. It's fine as long as you admit that on the face value, pity is really the only thing they got going for them. That is all. Thank you guys for watching.